In today's video, I'm going to talk about these three gadgets. In my left hand here, I have the Nintendo Switch 1, the ROG Ally X, and in my right hand, I have the Nintendo Switch version 2, which has just been released. And in this video, I just want to talk about a quick difference between the three of them and which one in 2025 is probably the best investment for you if you like handheld gaming. Let's start with the obvious. The upgrade between the Nintendo Switch 1 and the Nintendo Switch 2, which is approximately 7 or 8 years apart if you bought this at launch, which I did, is pretty dramatic. Yes, there's quite a big jump in price as well, but for the price of what you get for these two, you get a bigger screen, you obviously get much improved specs because it is 7, 8 years down the track, although they haven't made a lot of improvement to the battery life. This original one does not have an OLED screen, nor does the Switch 2, although there's a version of the Switch 1 that has an OLED screen, and if you're into the OLED screen, I guess that's a consideration, but from all reviews that I've seen is that this screen is pretty much on par with the OLED screen of the Switch 1. And given the performance improvements and the fact that you can get new games which are more optimized for the Switch 2, I don't know that the OLED screen makes a huge amount of difference. There's more built-in memory in this one compared to this one. The Joy-Cons, this one kind of slides up and it's a bit finicky. This one just basically detaches straight off like that. The thing to remember about the Switch 2 compared to the Switch 1, number one is Switch 1 games in general are compatible with Switch 2. So yes, you can play all your old games on Switch 2. Some of them have boosted performance, some of them have a Switch 2 version, some of which you have to pay extra for, like Zelda. And there are games that you don't have to pay extra for, but they just work better on Switch 2, and sometimes they give you a free upgrade. However, if you go the other way, there is no compatibility in the sense that you cannot play Switch 2 games on Switch 1. And the other big thing is, if you've already got these accessories for the Switch 1, some of them will work and some of them won't. The most important thing is the micro SD card that you've bought for your Switch 1 does not work on a Switch 2. So you need the special micro SD card, which is called micro SD Express. All of this stuff, even though you go, okay, it's an upgrade, it does increase the cost of the whole unit, and I'll go through that at the end. But basically, you've got a Nintendo Switch 1, which plays most of the games, Nintendo Switch 2, which has some new games, a lot of which haven't been released. And the other thing not to forget is that for some reason, the Switch 2 games retail at approximately $100 to $120 brand new, whereas the Switch 1 games started between $60 and $80. So there's been a significant price jump as well in terms of the games. And that's something that I kind of didn't like about the fact that the games are so much more expensive, but it is what it is. But if you want power and performance and something new and the ability to handle new games and even play the old games potentially faster, the Switch 2 is your guy. It's a different kettle of fish when you compare the Switch 2 with the ROG Ally X. Now, price-wise, the ROG Ally X is somewhere between $1,300 and $1,600 here in Australia. This one's about $600, $700, depends whether you get the Mario Kart pack. But basically, in terms of the footprint, they're about the same size in terms of length and width, but the ROG Ally X is significantly fatter. And the major difference is this plays Nintendo Switch games, and the ROG Ally X is a window-based system. So there are a lot of pros and cons about the ROG Ally X versus the Nintendo Switch 2, and I just want to go through a few of them right now for you so that it'll help you make a decision. Like I said, price-wise, this is significantly more expensive than the Nintendo Switch 2. I have subscribed to the Xbox Game Pass thingy, which adds another approximately $20-something a month. And for that, you get access to a certain library of games. And that's good because right now I've been playing this Lord of the Rings game, but I've been playing like cricket and I've been playing Diablo 4, all these games which are included if you have the Xbox Game Pass. And they all run only on the ROG Ally X in terms of these two handhelds. The thing about it is Windows, as we all know, has its own glitches. This is nowhere near as stable as the Nintendo Switch 2, and I have to frequently reboot this device because some of the games just don't work. Like, for example, the Lord of the Rings game, when I load it, it works perfectly fine, and if I have to stop it and restart it later on, the next time I load it up, none of the gamepad things work, and I have to actually restart it for it to work. So that's a bit of a nuisance. So when it comes to the performance between the ROG Ally X and the Nintendo Switch 2, completely different beasts. They run completely different games. They run completely different operating systems, so you can't compare the two. But I just want to tell you, if you're a casual gamer and you want to just quickly pick this up because you've got 5 minutes to play a game, this is not the one for you. Because I will show you. I'll even give this a head start. So I'm going to turn them both on. So pretty much in terms of the switch, and this is the ROG Ally X, the switch in about 10 seconds, like this is from a reboot, by the way. He's ready to go. So I'm going to press A and then 3 times, and you can even get rid of this, ready to go, ready to start. Windows has just done that, and now I'm going to have to log in. So you can either use your fingerprint or you can put in your PIN, which I'm going to do on this occasion, and it's not doing that. So it's taking its time to boot up. Meanwhile, with the Switch, I've already started Mario Kart. I can play whatever I want, and this is still booting. So this will take approximately another 2, 3, 5 minutes to get going to the point that you can actually play a game. So if you are a casual gamer who just wants to play this for 2 minutes or check what's happening in your game, this is not the one. Battery life, very similar, couple of hours, 3 hours, whatever. It's about the most you can get out of either of these handhelds without charging, which is something that you're just going to have to deal with, because it's not like an iPad where your games can last 8, 10 hours on one charge. And right now, it's still installing and booting all this stuff up, and it's still going to take another few minutes. So not ideal. While I'm talking, it's still going to be booting and loading, and it needs to get to the screen where you're allowed to choose. The other thing is, it is not the fault of the ROG Ally, but the games on a Windows-based system take up a lot more memory than a Nintendo Switch. So this thing, I think, has a 512 gigabyte drive in it, and you pretty much fit about 10 games, assuming you don't have any other software installed, because people will do crazy things like install like DaVinci Resolve on this and edit videos. And if you do that, you can have even less room. A downloadable game on this thing is usually about, and it's still booting, and now you've got to open another app to get to your games. Most games that you want to play, there you go, and now you can pick one. Most games on here, it takes, for me, on my home internet connection, which isn't the fastest, can take about 6 to 8 hours to download a game. So if you all of a sudden want to play a game and you've only have 20 minutes, don't bother, because by the time you download it, you basically have to download it, leave it plugged in, download it, and come back tomorrow to play it, which is crazy, but it is the trade-off. And I'm just going to show you something quickly. If you go to the Xbox store, there are a lot of games that are available on this thing which you obviously cannot get on the Nintendo Switch. And this is the Game Pass. So we're going to go to all PC games, and you can see there's a whole heap of them that you can get for free as long as you've got the Game Pass subscription going. So whether there are any games on here that is something that you enjoy, you've got to make the decision whether you think it's worthwhile getting this. You can obviously just buy one game and play it forever. But if you want a variety of games, you have to do something like the Xbox Game Pass. And if you don't want to pay extra, this may not be the one for you. Well, my suggestion to you, if you are after a gaming handheld in 2025, if you have nothing, the choice is probably going to be between something like the ROG Ally X and the Nintendo Switch 2. If you already have the Switch 1, is it worthwhile upgrading to the Switch 2? If you have money, sure. If you don't have money and you're not particularly interested in the newer version, the Switch 2 games, there's no reason why you can't hang on to that, as long as your hardware still works. If you're into all the new games, if you want a better screen, if you want bigger storage, if you want faster processing, all that kind of thing, you got to get this. Now, the difference between this and this is purely a game thing. This is way more expensive than this, but it's got different genre, different variety of games. The thing that's always disappointed me a little bit about the Switch 2 is there are a lot of games that I like to play, like Doom, Diablo, all that kind of stuff. Although they are kind of available for Switch, but they're much older versions. If you want the latest games that are not the Nintendo franchise, you're only going to find those games in the ROG Ally X. So if you're into those type of games, you only have one decision to make. You can't get the Nintendo Switch. Having said that, you obviously can't get Zelda and stuff on the ROG Ally X. There are all these methods that you can get emulators and all this kind of stuff, but that's way too complicated for me. I don't really know anything about it. I don't know what games you can emulate, but purely if you don't want to muck around, if you want a device, a handheld that you can just bring with you and you can just play, Nintendo Switch 2 is probably the best if they have the kind of games you want. You can't play Animal Crossing on the ROG Ally X, but similarly, you can't play Lord of the Rings on the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's a matter of combining, it's just working out what you want. It's not unreasonable. A lot of people I know will have both handhelds because they have different gaming desires, which is okay as long as you have the money. So that's it for that. Now, in terms of the cost of a Nintendo Switch 2, there is the cost of obviously just getting the console. You can get it with the Mario Kart pack, but it doesn't in there. So you think that by paying the $650 or the $700 you're done, Unfortunately, that is not the case. Just with any other device, it is not the case, because what happens is you have to buy the memory card. And I cannot imagine any scenario where I would have a Switch 2 without the micro USB card. So that's going to set you back roughly $80 for the 256 gigabyte version. You will probably have to pony up for a screen protector, because I always suggest screen protectors in a case like this. So you're going to add another 50 or 60 bucks to the investment as well. If you want a Pro controller, if you want the microphone so you can do that video chat thing, that's going to set you back another couple hundred. And don't forget that each game now costs somewhere between $100 and $120 each if you want the Nintendo Switch 2 version. So I'm actually on the lookout for Cyberpunk 2077, which is I think somewhere between 113 and 120 bucks, depends where you get it. But at the moment they're sold out everywhere. I know I can download it from Nintendo Switch Online, which is the next thing I'm going to come to, because if you want the online aspect of things, if you want to have the ability to test out some of the older games, because if you get the Nintendo Online plus the expansion, I think it's about $69 a year. You can actually get access to a whole library of Nintendo 64 and Sega games, which if that's something you're interested in, it might be worth out. $69 might seem like a lot of money, but if you divide it, it's like $6 a month, compared to the $23 a month you're paying for Xbox Game Pass. So your mileage will vary. It really depends on what games you like as to which console really is the ideal one for you. So with all the mumbo and the jumbo aside, which of the three handhelds that I've shown you today is the one for you? In summary, if you don't care about the new games, if you don't care about the fact that the screen is smaller and everything's a bit slower and the screen's not as good, you may be okay sticking to this one. If you, after all the new ones, and you got no choice but getting the Nintendo Switch 2, plus all the other accessories that I've mentioned, and if you want to play games that are not available in the Nintendo Switch universe, get the ROG Ally X. One of the things that I just found the other day, which is super interesting, is the fact that you can use these Joy-Cons of version 1 and use them as extra Joy-Cons for version 2. So if you want to play a 4-player Mario Kart, you can actually use these. But however, mine are broken. Now, these Joy-Cons work perfectly well, whether it's wireless or attached to the Switch 1, but this button no longer works. So I can't sync it with the Switch 2, so which makes me really sad. I don't know why, but if this actually was to work, you can actually use these Joy-Cons for Switch 2. So bear that in mind if you have the old Switch 1. It has to be the full-on Switch 1, not the Lite, because the Lite, the Joy-Cons don't detach. But that would be good. But if you were to buy these Joy-Cons new for the Switch 2, that's like another $140 or something. So I can't be doing that right now. One other thing I just wanted to show you that is super cool is that with both the ROG Ally X and the Nintendo Switch 2, I can actually plug it into a monitor. And the cool thing about this, which is I'll show you, once I get this going, reflections. This is why I hate videoing things with a screen, because I hate reflection. But look what I can do. I can actually play this. Sorry, I'm doing this one-handed, so it's a bit tricky. But I can actually play my Nintendo Switch on this portable monitor. This is a demonstration of how long it takes to load up Animal Crossing on the Switch 2. And I think even though it feels really slow, it actually loads up much quicker than it does on the Switch 1. And there we go. How cool is that? And I'm using the remote Joy-Cons to play this game on a monitor. And just to give you an idea of the size difference, this is the monitor that I got from Amazon. This is the size of the Switch. So you can see there's a lot more screen real estate. So there you have it. Nintendo Switch 1 versus Nintendo Switch 2 versus ROG Ally X. They all have their pros, they all have their cons. If you have a Nintendo Switch 1 and you have no intention of wanting to play any of the Switch 2 games and you're okay with older hardware and everything still works, stick to it. The games are cheaper and you're often going to find really big discounted games for the Switch 1 because some of them are pretty lame and no one plays it, let's be honest, and they can go for like 20 bucks. But if you want all the latest stuff, if you want better hardware, bigger storage, better screen, faster gaming, you want to be the latest thing, Switch 2 as you go. And if you're playing PC type games, Xbox type games, where you have no ability to find those particular games on the Nintendo system, your choice is the ROG Ally X. But if you can, get both, because you're going to enjoy a different variety of games. They all have their pros and cons. If you're just playing for 5 minutes, the ROG Ally X is not your gaming device, because it'll take you more than that to actually boot the thing up. But if you're into a longer session and if you've got games that you like on the ROG Ally X, that's be the ones I get as well. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know which gaming system you prefer, and I'll see you next time in another video. Bye.